Good afternoon. This is Paranormal Science Lab Live. I'm Lisa.
I'm Kathy.
And a little out of the ordinary, we're doing an afternoon broadcast.
Yep, we sure are. And it's nice because the location is lit.
Yes.
We can see.
So if you have questions, you want to chat, we can actually see what we're doing now. So
occasionally we use this location. We're at the Carthage Opera House, the Burlingham and Chaffee Opera House on the square in Carthage, Missouri. A location that's been featured on Ghost Hunters, and occasionally we come here at night. Of course, we have permission from the owner. We're good friends with the owner. It's actually considered our location for our group.
Yeah.
And but if he's not here and he doesn't know we're coming here, we don't have the power on, so we can't see. We are by moonlight, but yeah,
so
nice.
we actually have sunlight coming in the windows and lights overhead
and electricity. Yeah, we have all of it.
So
pampered today.
Yes. we aren't sure how to act now.
One thing I tell people when they talk about how do you feel about ghost hunting? How do you like it? And one of the things that I tell them is it's definitely not like you see on TV, because a lot of our locations we go to, we don't have heat, we don't have or air conditioning or indoor plumbing or just things. And then occasionally we do very comfortable locations like the Prosperity Schoolhouse is very comfortable, or the Kendrick House is very comfortable. But a lot of times we don't have the most comforts that you would expect, and you get dirty and cold and hot and sweaty. And
it's sort of those rites of passage. I think I don't know that you can really say you're an investigator unless you're willing to do those things.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to crawl through a cave if it took me to a haunted location.
Well, same here.
I would go through bats and spiders if it was a good location.
Oh yeah, and it's funny how people just how freaked out they are about even the concept of a haunting or being somewhere that's haunted.
I've had a lot of people who say, "Do you still do that?" And they say, "Yeah." And they go, "I really want to go on one of your investigations, but I'm scared." And I'm like, "What are you afraid of? We do this all the time, And there's really, for us, I guess it's more of a curiosity than something that you think of to be afraid of. I hardly ever feel afraid on a location.
No.
I'm trying to think if I have ever felt.
I mean, I've been startled at times, just surprised by something,
I know sometimes you get like a bad feeling when you go into some place. You get like you just don't feel right or whatever. But I don't know that I've ever been like scared.
I've had a healthy dose of caution at times, but and only in certain places.
I'm trying to think. Usually, there was a place that we went on that I said, "Oh, I think I'm actually scared here," and I can't think of where it was.
Was it over in Kansas?
It might have been.
We won't say the name of the place.
Yeah, it might have been there. It's very rare, though, when I think it might have been there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and it's been a little while since we've done a podcast. It's just been kind of busy and crazy and
life.
Mm-hmm.
and we've been busy with investigations too, and that kind of keeps us on our toes.
Yeah, it's funny. Something else I've run into, people who assume you do this as a living.
Yeah, I know. People think that it's your job, that you get. I wish we could make a living.
Well, yeah, I would love to figure that one out.
If we could do that, just every day, just get up in the morning, pack up our equipment, go out and investigate and get paid. That'd be awesome. Yeah, unfortunately, it's not really, it doesn't work that way.
No, not
sometimes it costs us money.
Yes. The standing joke is about needing to invest in stock for Duracell or something.
Yeah, with batteries and cables and all kinds of stuff.
But
cameras.
Oh yeah, it's always something that is wearing out or something.
And then some locations they charge you to investigate there.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, and I know there's some people who really complain about that, even investigators, and I'm not going to name names, but feeling like they should never have to pay to investigate. But I look at it as, especially in generally places that charge are historic sites or businesses, etc. And I don't see a problem with that. I mean,
I don't either,
because they're supporting themselves.
If I am like the owner of this building and I own this building, and I know that it's haunted because it's been investigated by many different teams and really well-known teams, I'm going to charge people to come in here if they want to come in here and see for themselves. Yeah, he has to pay for the building. He owns the building.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's expenses. I mean, even if you just look at electricity and,
Yeah. Just to turn the power on costs money, but it's just, if I owned a place like this, I would charge people to come in here and do their investigations. I certainly would.
Now, we don't charge private individuals, and that's just something that we do. And most places, and most groups don't. But, a private residence, we don't charge for our services, but a location may charge us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you have... if you are in this area and you think that you're having a paranormal, issue, we don't charge to come out and investigate. And we've done it several times, many, many times. I think generally we always leave the homeowner feeling a lot better about their situation than they did when we got there. So
yeah, I mean, you may not be able to answer every question, but often, if nothing else, you can help with coping skills.
Yeah. Sometimes you feel like, it's counseling almost, too.
Well, it is a bit. You
help people learn to, like you said, cope with it and
accept
accept it, understand it, not be afraid. Especially when we do locations that have, where children live and they have, the kids are scared to go in their room or whatever. Yeah, we did one house where we got absolutely nothing in the child's bedroom, and the child had reported different things, and not to say that the child was lying or anything like that, but that they maybe
at least that night nothing was going on.
Nothing was going on that night, and I think that when we left there, the little child felt better about their room, knowing that we didn't get any demonic voices coming across saying "Get out."
Well, I think that's one thing. I think people tend to react in different ways to activity. Some kind of take it in stride, some accept it, some just are in denial, and some fight it.
And some want it.
And some want it.
And then they don't have it sometimes, and we have to tell them, well, we didn't get anything. And they're like, really?
But sometimes wanting it not only just for a curiosity factor, but a psychological factor that, to somehow give them affirmation or something. And that's not healthy.
No, it's not. And I think right now, with the paranormal shows on television stuff, it's become so commonplace that every location that they go to has a lot of activity, and I think everybody kind of wants to take part in that now. It's become like the hip thing, to have a ghost, and it's not considered really frightening anymore. It's just become, like I said, commonplace. But now they're turning it around again, where they're trying to make it more scary by everything is demonic, and everything is harmful. And I kind of liked it better when they were just going and investigating and making people feel at ease with their whatever was going on in their location. But now everything is a demon, and it seems like all of the shows are going towards that. Just so you know, as an investigator, paranormal investigator, we can say without a doubt that not every location that's haunted is demonic.
Virtually few. Virtually none are.
Virtually none.
Usually it's just a grumpy spirit or angry about something.
Yeah. I mean, like we did a Periscope prior to doing the podcast, and like I was saying in the Periscope, in this location there's Mr. Boots, or we call him Boot Man, and he'll come running up on you and like run. You hear his big heavy footsteps go boom, 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 and he runs up on you, and and it can be really startling when that happens. I would feel like that would be something that somebody would say was demonic. And even though we've experienced it many times, we bring groups in here, sometimes with hundreds of people. It's a large location. Halloween, we had several hundred people in here, and nobody's ever had any kind of possession or whatever. Nobody's been harmed or scratched or whatever.
And we're not minimizing those possibilities. You do have to use some common sense, but
that's true.
But I think there is fear mongering. That everything is the boogeyman, so to speak.
I've heard stories of some people who have told me stories of haunted locations that I would say, wow, okay, that actually might be a demon. Mm-hmm. And I think if we were asked to investigate those places, I would probably be concerned for my safety in those places where people have been really harmed, physically harmed, and objects have been moved and stuff like that. That's like into, intricate ways and stuff. Those types of things, I would definitely proceed with caution.
Oh, yeah.
In that. And we proceed with caution in any new location that we don't know what to expect, but we definitely don't go in expecting it to be.
No, and I know a couple of different people who had hauntings that were certified as demonic by the Catholic Church.
I remembered the location where I was a little bit scared.
Oh? It
was the one up the road from your house. The library.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That actually kind of frightened me a little bit in there. When everything started going crazy at that one moment, like everything just like cameras fell, machines came on, like all that stuff started happening all at one time. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like got a little bit, okay, wow, that I've never experienced anything quite like that in my time as an investigator. I've only been an investigator for like a year, 2 years?
About 2 years, I think, yeah.
I never experienced anything quite like this. There was things happening on all 3 floors of the building, and it just was like a wave of paranormal activity. It just came through like a tidal wave and then stopped. But just fax machines, copiers were coming on, and the cameras started falling down, and there was just team members running all up and down everywhere trying to see what was, checking out every little sound that we heard. But and then it was over just as quickly as it started. Mm-hmm. It stopped, and that kind of left me going, okay, wow, that was something that I think all of us in the paranormal world are a little bit skeptical.
You have to be. Well, you should be anyway. Yeah.
I think you automatically look at every situation from a skeptical point of view. So when something like that happens, where there is no logical explanation. This was late at night. Mm-hmm. The place was closed and locked up. It was just us in the building, and it was even just a few of us. We didn't even have a full crew that night. It was just a couple of us there. And so when something like that happens, and there is no reasonable explanation that you could possibly come up with to make it, explain it. I had my hair pulled in that location. I got a scratch on the back of my neck at that location.
I watched it come up.
Yeah, you watched. I was sitting right in front of your son. He was sitting in the chair. I was sitting on the floor, and I had my hair down when it started coming on. And I said to him, is there something on the back of my neck? He said, you have a scratch there. And there's no possible way. That was all that same night. Mm-hmm. And that actually kind of shook me just a little. I mean, not to the point where I would say I'd never want to go back there again or anything like that, but I would consider that would be one of the locations that I don't know that I would feel comfortable taking a group of guests in there with like kids and stuff at night. I would be a little bit concerned that it might be a little too active, scary.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, that is possible. Now, I don't think you were you aware of what happened last weekend at Prosperity School?
Was not. I had gone downstairs to do a private with a child who we were communicating. Some of the people in the group had communicated with family members on our investigation. Came through and so there was a little child in the group whose grandmother had passed, and he wanted to ask some questions and stuff. So I took him downstairs away from the groups. It was just us, and then something happened while I was gone.
Well, basically, a flashlight was laying on a dresser up in the suite, and it came off of the dresser and landed in the floor with force about 3 feet out.
Wow. I heard the commotion. I heard everybody kind of like making noise and stuff upstairs, and I thought, oh, something happened.
But yeah, I mean, it had just been sitting there, and it came off of, I mean, it was nothing about a roll or anything. It came out, straight out.
Wow.
And landed about 3 feet out
I'm
with
sorry
force.
I missed that.
Yeah. And so something was definitely making presence.
Yeah, and then after that,
and no one was touching the dresser or anything like that could have explained it.
After that, when we did the investigation in the downstairs, we had a lot of major K2 activity. Like
lots of EMF.
The K2s could have had like 3 times more lights on them, and I think we still would have gone all the way up to the end. I never saw so much.
There were a lot of red spikes.
A lot, and they were just going and going and going and going and going.
And then they'd stop, and as soon as you ask if you're there, they'd spike red. Again. Yeah.
And that's a location that we do fairly often. We know the K2 activity in that building, and that's not. In fact, earlier in the evening, we started out our investigation in that same room. We had nothing. Nothing. It was crickets in there, and I thought, oh, it's going to be one of those nights. Then when we did it again later that night, just crazy amount of activity in that room. And so that place was really active the other night. Really active the other night. It was good. It was a good investigation. The little boy that I was talking about, he was a little bit scared. He told me later. He said he wasn't sure if he wanted to go back again because he got a little bit scared. I'm glad he wasn't there when the flashlight flew off the table.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen some kinetic activity like that. But
we had a lot of guests that night who are sensitives and stuff. There was a lot of people there who, I think that added to.
Well, and that's possible. I mean, that is possible. Or it could just be someone was really trying to get a point across, that's hard to know, but I mean, to have a physical object move like that is pretty interesting. And it had sat there for, at least 20 minutes. And
that is the same. We usually go, when we go into these rooms and we have groups of people with us, we usually set our equipment usually in the same places because we know what places we can set the equipment.
Right.
Where it's not going to roll or move or, pick up on, an outlet or something.
And we've never had that happen.
Never had that happen. I've never seen it happen. I'm sorry I missed it.
It happens every once in a while, but not too often. There has been some kinetic activity like that here downstairs in the past.
I've heard that. I haven't witnessed it.
Yeah, I haven't witnessed it, but I've talked to multiple witnesses who, if they were making it up, they were very convincing. A couple of them were pretty freaked out.
I lived in a house where I've told you some stories about this house, but I've lived in a house where stuff would move, and I know when it happens. I mean, people just are freaked out. They can't even hardly describe to you what happened because they're just sort of they don't even. Their brain is processing it as they're trying to explain it to you, and they can't even really process it and make the words come out. Because when I was living there, one of my friends who lived on the other half of the side of the house, she was doing dishes, and the glass apparently she would set the glass down on a towel, and the glass apparently flipped over.
Oh wow!
And landed on its bottom. So she set it upside down, and it flipped over and landed on its base.
See, that to me, that's more amazing than being thrown off a counter or something, because that take a lot of energy to flip it over.
There was a lot of activity in that house. The house was really crazy, but that was the house I lived in where everything in the one room broke.
Oh yeah, you
shattered.
About that.
Yeah, everything that was breakable, anything that wasn't breakable was moved, and just in one room of the house, in the middle of the night, it was a loud bang, boom, like I thought a piece of the plaster fell out of the ceiling and hit the floor. Right. But it hadn't.
Yeah, it was just everything moving or shattering. Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, you have to think some event was replaying or something to cause that.
Well, the house was at the end of a cul-de-sac, at the end of a dead end road, not even a cul-de-sac. And it sat between the church and the cemetery. And at the end of the dead end road was the big cemetery. And so it was the house that the embalmer used. And up in that, and it was an old Victorian house.
So it had been a mortuary then. Okay.
And up in the attic, there was still the little bottles and stuff like that.
Apothecary stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, upstairs, still up in the desk from the doctor. It was still up there in front of the window in the attic and stuff. And it was just people would come down our road, and like I said, it was a dead end road, and they would say, I thought you guys didn't go up in the attic. And we had the attic blocked off. We had mattresses in front of the attic door because we were afraid of it. And we would say, there's nobody up in the attic. And they would say, well, there's a light on up there. It looked like a candle light up in the attic. And we were like, trust me, there's nobody up there with a candle. But she came running over, and she just couldn't even talk. She was like, and it flipped, and it turned, and it just turned, and we were like,
what are you talking about?
What are you saying? So we've had, in that same house, people would wake you up in the middle of the night and say, hey, were you in my room? And they're like, no. You didn't come in my room and turn off the TV? I thought it was you came in my room and turned off. Yeah, and you'd be like, I'm asleep. Why would I get up and walk into your room and turn off your TV? But yeah, those weird things happen. I never felt scared there.
Even with all that going on. Well, there can be a lot of activity, and you not feel scared, but those feelings are usually pretty dead on if you have an unsettled feeling. One thing I was going to switch gears just a little bit, get your take on this. Been talking recently with several investigators who are across the pond in Europe, and it's really interesting because it seems that there's a completely different expectation for investigation and for paranormal TV, etc., in Europe than over here.
Yeah,
they don't expect everything to be edited for there always to be activity, etc. And in fact, are suspicious if every episode has activity.
Yeah,
I find that refreshing.
I do too, and you would think that the history in Europe. I watched a show one time where they did the Tower of England.
Oh, Tower of London.
Tower of London.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about the history of that building, according to, mathematics and just statistically, if you're going to have a lot of activity in, say, a building like this, did you hear that big thump?
Yeah, I did.
I wonder if they picked that up on there.
I don't know. That was pretty loud.
If you're going to have a ton of activity in a building like this, which is, 200 years old? 150?
Well, yeah, about 160. This is, I guess, about 150, yeah.
And you've got, maybe a few people. We know that there was a gentleman shot outside on the sidewalk, and then we know that there was a few deaths here in the building that are documented. But if you think about that, and the activity that we have here, and then you take the difference in the length of the years of, say, the Tower of London, and the difference of the amount of people who were killed there.
Yeah, aside from the fact that it was a prison.
Yeah, if you were to take that and do the math, you would think that there would be constant amount of paranormal activity happening in that building. And I saw a show where they investigated there and got really very little.
Well,
if anything. I mean, it was really disappointing because I thought, my gosh, there's going to be crazy amount of activity inside that building.
But, again, it never happens all the time, it seems, you know, or on cue or in a straight line, no matter what the place is,
Yeah, that's true. I just was like a little bit disappointed. But I think you're right. I think that in Europe...
Did you hear that?
I still hear it.
Yeah, but the first one sounded like a very heavy boot step.
I wonder if we picked it up on there.
Be interesting. I have a recorder going over there on the floor, too.
Do we have minutes on here?
Yeah, 25.
All right, so we'll go back around 25 minutes. And
that almost sounded like a voice.
I heard a voice when I was doing the Periscope, too, back there by the stairs.
So can you talk to us? Who's here? Is someone walking around? I think that was a car starting outside.
Oh, okay.
Well, that was interesting. It's like when we stopped talking, they stopped walking.
Yeah, well, we've had that here before when we're not paying attention to a certain somebody here. He gets edgy and wants our attention.
Well, that's true, or maybe wants to know what we're doing. I'm not quite sure which.
Yeah, that's true. I think we're just sitting here talking to ourselves.
So, if you could just pick some place you'd like to go investigate, what would it be?
Oh gosh, the catacombs in Paris.
That would be interesting.
Or even the catacombs in like Edinburgh.
Oh yeah, Edinburgh just fascinates me.
Yeah.
And it seems to be consistently, voted the most haunted city in Europe. But
I would love to investigate catacombs because, there are so many urban legends surrounding catacombs and stuff like that, and people getting lost down there, and they find like recorders, and like they're running from something, and they drop the recorder, and then the person's never seen. I know they made a movie like that, but it's based on those stories.
Well, yeah, actually, that movie was based on a real video footage that was found. Someone down the catacombs, and
I imagine if you're down there for too long, your mind would start playing tricks on you.
Well, it's very possible.
And some people are more susceptible to letting their mind, get away from them, and you start, even in any kind of location, when we're sitting in the dark for too long or whatever, you just kind of start to think that you're seeing things, but it's just your focus. Every little sound that you hear, you think, oh, it sounds amplified, Did you hear it again?
Yeah, sound like another footstep.
But I could see if you were down there and you were separated from people and you were by yourself, that you could easily, just a rat or something would make you think that it was something chasing you.
Well, yeah. But, to the point that you drop the camera and run and then...
They never get found.
Never get found. I mean, that's amazing. Although, those are the sort of the famous catacombs. But really, in Southwest Missouri, we have a lot here. The same things. In fact, we're sitting on top of caverns right now. People would explore, and some didn't make it out. And then all the mining tunnels, too.
Yeah.
And so, it's very similar, just isn't quite as romanticized as the ancient ones.
Yeah, there's a lot of places around the world that I would love to go to Peru, to some of the old, like Inca place,
the temples
and I'm trying to remember the name of the one. I think it's in Bolivia. I can't think of what it's called. It'll come to me when I'm talking about something else. I would love to to take some equipment to those places. It's a big monolithic place.
Machu Picchu?
No, it's in this one's in Bolivia.
Bolivia.
And I can't think of what it's called, but it'll come to me. There's a lot of places all over the world that I would love to go to that are historical, and I'm talking prehistoric.
Right. Stonehenge, places like that. I had someone who actually said the other day their holy grail to investigate would be the Great Pyramids in Egypt. And I just thought and the funny thing is we don't really know whether or not
I wouldn't even want to do the Great Pyramids. I would want to do Giza. I would want to do the Valley of the Kings. Well,
yeah. I mean, we know that there were burials there. We're really not sure whether burials were actually made in the pyramids, or if so, they were completely cleaned out. But Valley of the Kings and some of those monuments
and the temples in Egypt those would be really, really interesting to do an investigation at. I don't think that the pyramids were used as tombs. It just doesn't go along with the whole process of the tombs. And I studied it when I went to when I was in college. I studied art history, and I did. My focus was primarily on Egyptology, and I almost got a scholarship to go to Cairo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but then the Desert Storm broke out, and they stopped sending college students to the Middle East. So I just dated myself quite a bit there. But now you all know how old I am.
That's all right. Actually, I think, it does help to have a little life experience when we're doing this kind of work, because a little common sense, a little life experience goes a long way in dealing with things and evaluating things.
Tiwanaku.
Oh, yes.
That's what I had to Google it. I had to Google it. It's in Bolivia. There's a couple places in Bolivia, and there's quite a few in Peru that I
heard that.
I heard it too.
Well, come on over here.
I know you guys can hear that. Well, if you're interested, if you're watching this and you're interested in seeing what this location looks like, if you're listening to this, you can go on to the Paranormal Science Lab on Twitter, and you can watch the Periscope video that I just took prior to this, or I did a whole video of this location, so you can kind of see where we're at and what it looks like here. It's interesting when that happens.
Yeah. Well, there's just so many different things that have happened in this building.
That as soon as you said, come on over here, it started doing that.
Yeah. Well, we've had several footsteps, so that's always kind of interesting when you're broadcasting and then you start getting activity.
Yeah, if you guys, anybody who's listening, if you have any of your prime locations, someplace that you would love to go to investigate paranormal, message it, and so we can find out, because that'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty excited. We can't reveal the location right now, but in a few weeks we're going to a Civil War site in the Midwest that hasn't been investigated before.
Yes,
and so we're pretty excited about that.
Yes, that's gonna. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Just like.
So that'll be interesting. And what do you think? Do you think it makes a difference with locations that have been hunted to death, like some of the big places like Waverly Hills, or
I do think that it does. When you go into a location that's been abandoned for a long time, and when you first open the doors and walk in there, I do feel like you're more likely to get activity than in a place that's been investigated over and over again. Mm-hmm. However, on the flip side, it does work kind of the opposite way too. when we do investigations pretty frequently, and our team investigates the same location fairly often. On the other hand, sometimes you do get more activity, I think, when the resident spirits get to know you.
Well, I think so too. And what I've wondered if it has to do with so many different people coming in and different personalities and approaches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that the location that we did last week almost seems to be like a catalyst for bringing out spirits that are attached to people, like family members and stuff like that. It seems to happen more there than it does anywhere else that we go to.
There in the John Weiss house in Joplin.
The John Weiss house, I wish we could still investigate there, because I had just joined the team when we were investigating in that place. And whenever we were in there, I would get these like little flashes of light like out of my peripheral vision all the time when we were doing our podcast or something. I was constantly like...
Yeah, there were a lot of little light balls, and not orbs, not dust orbs, but actual flashes of light in there. Plus, a very interesting shadow man, Hat Man was caught there too. And so...
And what I thought was interesting was the last time that we investigated there had been cleared, the place had been cleared out of all of the furniture. And one of the spirits was completely gone, and the other one that we knew was there was asking where he went, like what happened to him. And,
asking where Peter was.
And it kind of goes along with the theory of the haunted,
the haunted collector.
The haunted collector, where, if you ever didn't believe in that sort of thing, that entities can be attached to items, that would really make you question your skepticism, because that was a common spirit that was there every single time that we investigated. And then when all of the stuff was cleared out of that building, he was gone.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I really don't know that he was attached to something in the building, or maybe when it was empty, he just wandered off. I don't know, but that place did seem to be a place where people who went in there, you'd end up with spirits that were connected to them showing up.
I could see that. Very interesting photo came out of that place, where somebody put a photo from a prom picture, and they used as a backdrop. And they thought that they saw something on the porch, which when we zoomed in on it, we could see it was a lamp. From the distance, it did look like an entity, but at the same time, we noticed that there was a figure of a girl in the window upstairs, and it matched exactly the description that my daughter gave of the girl that she saw there, the same color dress and everything. And so we were like, yeah, well, the image that everybody sees online is just a lamp, but what about the girl in the window?
Yeah, exactly.
Has nobody seen that? It was kind of an interesting photo, and it was really interesting to me because she described that girl in the blue dress and stuff, and that was a knock.
That was definitely a knock.
Can you do that again, please?
Or a step on the stairs. Are you coming up the stairs? Fairly active right now.
Yeah. What time is it? 3:30.
3:30.
It basically started right around 3 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, of course, I have read studies. They say that the most...
Whoa. What the heck was that?
That almost sounds like a sonic boom.
Okay, it happened again. You guys probably couldn't hear that, but we could feel it. The whole building just shook.
Now, in this building, particularly the basement, there is a phenomena where people hear cannon fire, and it sits on a location that was destroyed multiple times in the Civil War, and cannons were used here. So
just wanted to look out the window to see if there was any.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting.
I mean, this floor shook, and this is a heavy building.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big wooden plank floor.
I mean, it vibrated.
It vibrated, yeah. The whole floor shook.
It seemed like it felt like a pressure wave.
Yeah.
Is exactly what it felt like. So that's very interesting.
And it happened 2 times right in a row.
Mm-hmm. Now, if one thing I want to say too is anyone who's out there who's interested in coming to some of these locations, you can watch our Facebook page, Twitter feed, and a website for notices on public events. And if you have your own paranormal team, you can book private investigations here and other locations that we help manage, and proceeds go to maintenance and upkeep of the locations, because generally the locations we work with don't receive any funding from public or other regular funding.
Yeah.
It's all donations. So if you're at all interested, just get a hold of us, because you can do that. And this is definitely an interesting location that has had activity over a very long period. And actually, one thing I like about this building is this isn't something that, started as people started saying, oh, that's an old building, it's haunted. Activity started here, actually, before the building was built. Mm-hmm. After the Civil War, when this area was being rebuilt, they dug the basement for this building, and before they ever pumped out the water or anything, and were working down there in that hole, the construction workers back in the 1870s would complain that they would hear cannon fire. And of course, these would be guys who they knew what cannon fire was, because we're talking just 10 years after the war, and they would complain that would happen repeatedly, and that was reported in the newspapers. And so this literally has been haunted since the 1870s.
Well, I've not experienced the sound of cannon fire, but I would have to say that what we just felt was probably about as close as I would expect to get.
Well, it felt like the pressure wave off of it, and I've actually been embedded photographer in Civil War reenactments, and you get that pressure wave that will go through you when they shoot the cannons. In fact, sometimes they'll mess with the cameras and everything else, and that's exactly what it felt like. But it didn't have the loud boom. I mean,
it was just. I thought there was a thud,
but it wasn't really loud. Now, I do know people who've experienced cannon fire here, and that it's so loud that they say it sounds like an explosion. One description was that they assumed the gas main blew. I mean, so very loud, but didn't have noise like that. But the pressure wave off of it was similar to that. So very interesting.
Very interesting.
See, and what I started to say actually before that happened was not unusual to have all this activity this time of day, because there's actually studies that 3 p.m. in the afternoon is when activity is reported than any other time. Now, granted, most people aren't up at 3 a.m., but more reports of activity and seeing ghosts, etc., happen during the day than at night, actually.
Yeah, I would believe that. The only time that I really experienced Bootman running up on anybody was when we were here in the daytime.
Mm-hmm.
And, he ran up on my daughter, when we were doing a podcast, and scared her pretty well.
Now, I have had activity from him at night too, but yeah, it definitely is not a nighttime thing.
Yeah, I think that I don't think that day or night matters in this location for sure. Or light or dark or anything like that. I don't think it makes a difference. I think it matters what Bootman decides to do. I think sometimes he just likes to make noise and mess with people, and he'll do it if you're here. And you give him the opportunity to.
Yeah, well, something's been fairly active while we've been broadcasting. So,
I'm anxious to excited to do a video, take some pictures after we finish up.
Well, I think you were probably winding up, unless, is there anything that you want to?
I don't think so, but
I guess that we should do a plug. Our next public tours are April 30th. So a week from tomorrow night, we will actually be here at the Opera House, and we actually do a walking ghost tour around the square and get all the ghost stories around the square and investigate here. And then 2 weeks after that, on May 14th, we are out at the Kendrick House, which is another fantastic location.
Is that Saturday night?
Mm-hmm.
I have to skip that one.
Uh-oh.
I'll explain later.
Okay. No problem. No problem. I guess we might be able to move it,
I actually already got the invitations printed. That's the day that I plan on having Jackie's graduation party.
Oh, okay.
I should have thought to check our schedule, and
Well, we could probably move that anyway. So.
Family coming in from
gotcha,
and stuff.
gotcha.
So.
Not a problem. Now we'll figure that out. So, to be announced there, but we're going to be out there pretty soon, and that's another location that's just phenomenal with even pre-Civil War history and activity.
Yeah, that place really is. After I joined this team, that was really one of the first times that I experienced undeniable paranormal activity. So that place has a special place in my heart for being the first place that I really experienced and saw things, that I couldn't, even as a skeptic, try to explain. And I'm glad too to have that experience, because it really broadens your perspective of when you see things that aren't real. Because, as a paranormal investigator, that's a whole other thing. We've taken pictures and stuff like that and caught things, and then when you go back to that location and you re-examine where the picture was taken stuff, you can see that it was just something, an image or whatever.
Play of the light or something.
Play of the light or something, you go, oh, okay. But when you do get to actually see what it really looks like and what you really should expect, it gives you a much broader idea when you watch TV or whatever, you see other people's evidence, and you go, that's not probably what they think it is.
Right.
So, but I'm really grateful for having that experience at the Kendrick House, because that was one of my first places. It was my first ghost hunt tour,
was it?
And it was my first
aha moment,
investigation. Yeah, as a ghost hunter, so it was really exciting for me to get that experience. That's a fun location.
And we're going to get a podcast out there pretty quick too.
Yeah.
Before long, because just need to.
That's a place that my daughter doesn't even like to go into on account of that time when all the lights went out. When we were in there and all the power went out in the whole building, and then it came back on and scared the crap out of her. She doesn't even like to go in there anymore. She still will, but she's like, she'll say, "Where is it? Like, where are you going?" And I'll say, "Kendrick." She's like, she gets a little scared in there.
Well, if the worst thing that the scariest thing that happens is the lights going out for a second, then that's pretty much nothing.
Yeah, that's been scarier stuff than that happening there. So that's
okay. Well, I think we'll wind it up, and we will talk at you guys soon, and probably from the Kendrick House. But there's just no telling what we may be doing over the next couple of weeks. So we appreciate everyone listening, and anyone that has feedback or ideas you'd like covered, feel free to contact us. We are more than happy to discuss all kinds of topics.
Absolutely.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.